Welcome to Business Authority Radio, bringing you insights from today's thought leaders, professionals, and influencers. With your hosts, Neil Howe and Craig Williams.
Hello and welcome to the show. This is your host, Neil Howe, and today's guest is Jan Allen. She helps her clients and their businesses with the issues that arise every day in a business owner's personal life and business, and provides the unique solutions that only by viewing the issues through accounting, tax, and legal perspectives will an effective solution be created. So welcome to the show, Jan Allen.
Thank you, Neil. I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you.
Well, we've got three things going on here. We've got tax, we've got accounting, and legal perspectives. So there's a lot to cover in this show. But tell us first a little bit about yourself and your company and what kind of clients that you help.
Okay, well, I'm a Montana native. I came to California to seek fame and fortune, also known as a job, and in about 1985. And I had an accounting degree when I came down here, but when I first arrived in California, I decided that what I really wanted to be was a consultant with a large accounting firm, think Ernst Young or Price Waterhouse. And I actually did go up and I went and talked to one of the partners in one of the firms in Los Angeles about becoming a consultant. And while they appreciated the tax experience that I had at that point, they advised me that I needed three more degrees. I needed an MBA, a law degree, and a master's in law and tax. And so armed with that type of information, I went back and decided that I'd put together a 7-year plan that I executed in 5. And I went back and obtained an MBA in International Finance from the University of San Diego. I went and I obtained a law degree from Southwestern University School of Law in Los Angeles, and I came back to the University of San Diego School of Law to obtain an LLM in tax. And I went back to talk to the same partner that I had talked to 5 years previously, and they offered me a position in one of their segments in the consulting division that happened to be nonprofits. And I'd had a lot of tax experience, so I decided what I would do is I would just bypass that offer, although it had been a dream of mine, and move in a different direction. At that point, I had met my partner, Richard Barron, and we decided that we would form a company called Allen Barren, Inc. And Allen Barren, Inc. is the genesis of what it is that we're doing today. We started out with the idea that we would do accounting, tax, and consulting, which we do. But when you hold yourself out as a consulting firm, people really don't understand what it is that you do, because consultants charge you a lot of money and they don't really achieve a lot of things. At least that was the perception that we ran into when we were first starting out. So we broke the firm into its component parts. So we have Janathan L. Allen APC, which is the legal part of our practice. And then we have Allen Barren, Inc., which does our accounting, tax compliance, and consulting work. So I actually have 2 firms, and it's really an outgrowth of the need that we saw, my partner and I, when we first started Allen Barren, Inc. Over 20 years ago. And that's the integration of these issues that are all linked together through accounting, tax, and legal that can't be solved with just a singular solution. So oftentimes when we talk to clients, they'll come in and they'll tell me that there is one particular issue that they have, when in fact it's going to be the issue and its solution is going to be pointed in an entirely different direction. So our clients are clients that have unique problems, as all businesses do. And what we do is we go back and we fashion solutions that are going to accommodate their needs and achieve the solution that they're looking for, but by not making matters particularly worse. So when we go back and we deal with our clients, we're always viewing their issues and their problems through a multidisciplinary lens, and that's accounting, law, and tax.
Mm-hmm. Well, you certainly put the time in to get all your degrees and all that experience, and now you're able to help over multiple avenues with the tax, the accounting, and those legal issues, which is excellent. But let's go a little bit more specific here. And what kind of person do you actually help? Is it a business owner or somebody who's just doing their personal finances?
No, our clients cover the gambit. So it can be individuals, individuals with tax concerns or tax controversy work. Perhaps they're under audit. It could be individuals that are looking for tax compliance, that is getting their tax returns completed. Could be an individual that wants to go back and put together a trust because they're looking to go back to protect their family and their assets. It could be a mom and pop operations that are looking for accounting assistance, and additionally tax preparation, whether it's IRS, Franchise Tax Board, Board of Equalization, or payroll, which would be EDD. So our clients run the gambit from individuals to business owners, and the business sizes really run from mom and pop organizations to billion-dollar international companies. Because really business issues really are not confined by the size of a company. A problem is a problem that needs to be solved.
And do you see the same problems across all different businesses, or does each size of business or each business vary individually?
No, the problems really are just a matter of degree and dollars. But the problems that we go back and we're faced, whether we're dealing with a mom and pop organization or if we're dealing with a larger organization, is really predicated on a number of things and a number of issues. And those issues are the same whether the company is $500,000 or $100 million.
Mm-hmm. And what are those issues that really stand out then for most companies?
For us and our firm, we see primarily issues that arise that begin with accounting, but really show up in other forms, primarily in the tax compliance and controversy areas. I don't think that we've gone back and done an audit, any particular kind of audit, where the underlying financial information was either inaccurate or just plain wrong. So from our perspective, it's really important that an individual, whether they're keeping their own set of books or whether or not they're keeping a set of books for their business or for someone else's business, that they are adequate and experienced enough to maintain a set of financial statements that make sense. Because when those underlying financial statements are in error or have errors, that often leads to issues down the line, 2, 3, 4 years down the line, in the form of audits that we see from any one of the governmental agencies. And what ends up occurring is those underlying fundamental accounting problems lead to costs in the form of higher taxes, penalties, and interest aggregated over a period of time. So for us, generally, the issues that individuals and businesses have can be traced back to issues in their accounting.
So what's the first step for a business, or what's your one piece of advice for any business? Is it just making sure that they have a bookkeeper and accountant on hand to make sure that those figures are in the right place?
Well, I think what generally ends up occurring is that clients and businesses want to be cost effective, and oftentimes they go back and they place their cost effectiveness in the wrong place. So because someone can turn on a computer and input something into, pick a software, say QuickBooks, doesn't make them a bookkeeper, and it certainly doesn't make them an accountant. And while there are a lot of individuals out there that call themselves bookkeepers and accountants, the fact of the matter is accounting is a complex area. And what ends up occurring is if one doesn't understand the input that they're putting into a computer, then it's the old adage where there's garbage in and garbage out. So finding someone that's competent to go back and run a set of books is one thing. Having someone go back and review it that actually has expertise in that area is probably one of the most important components that I can think of that I would give advice to any small to mid-sized and even large businesses.
And of course, you've got the accounting as one part, but there's also the tax part as well. And there's all different rules, especially now with the new reform. that people are trying to understand, and maybe an accountant is not going to understand everything a tax attorney would.
Well, and that's true. And one of the things that we find, particularly in the tax arena, is tax is far more complex than it used to be. The Tax Act that was enacted in December is one piece of it, but we live in a fairly unique society. Down here in San Diego, we have a lot of engineers that are coming in from foreign countries that are brought into this country that don't recognize that they have special needs in terms of the tax compliance because they're now suddenly in the United States. So we deal in the international aspect as well. I think that's probably one of the more intriguing areas that we work in. So for us, the tax world is not only domestic compliance, but also structuring transactional issues between and by companies that are in different countries in order to ensure a tax minimized strategy coming from both countries.
And how have things changed since the Tax Act in December? Do you see a lot more business? I know we're only a couple of months in, but do you see a lot more business coming back to the United States because of that?
Actually, we've seen a lot of business from the international perspective. It's been ongoing since the recovery of coming out of the recession that we've been coming out of. It didn't really start with the election of the new administration. Our firm has seen it for the last 3.5, 4 years. There's a lot of interest in coming to the United States. And by the same token, there's a lot of interest for U.S. businesses to go out and sell in other countries as well. So we never really saw a decline. We've seen sort of a slow upward growth for about the last 3.5 years.
So what do you see as the most common misconceptions surrounding the tax industry?
Oh, gosh. I think perhaps that it's easy and anybody can do it. And I'll give you an example. I was out visiting a client this morning who's having some issues with sales tax, and they're undergoing audit. And, you know, they're like a lot of smaller businesses. They've started out and they've obtained software and they've gone back and set up what they thought were needed requirements. There was no need to go back and get an accountant until the end of the year when taxes needed to be done. And yet the underlying accounting that was being done on the company's behalf was inadequate to go back and provide source documents for an audit. So as a result, they go back, and this particular client got a notice of determination that was in the $300,000 range. And small businesses, when they don't realize that what it is that they've done and how it is they've reported something isn't accurate, really don't recognize the ramification down the line of what it could end up costing them. So for me, again, it goes back to this issue. It shows up as a tax issue, but really fundamentally it was an accounting issue. And the way the accounting software and financial statements are prepared on behalf of a company is one of the most important pieces of intellectual property that a company can create. But we don't seem to do a very good job of it. I think we get sloppy. Things are not tied down as well as they could be, and people just say, well, it's good enough. And oftentimes it isn't good enough.
And why is that? Why do people feel that it's okay just to kind of sweep things under the rug or kick the can down the road until there's a problem?
Well, because people don't think they're going to get caught. I have a lot of international clients that are here in the States and are not going back and they're not necessarily complying with FBAR. And so what ends up happening is their chief argument is, well, doesn't such hasn't done it, so why should I? And I think we find that in small businesses as well. Well, doesn't such isn't doing that, why should I? And then there's it's like the water cooler effect. People go out, whether they're at a cocktail party or maybe at a business get-together, and they'll be chatting in among themselves, and there's a lot of misinformation that's passed on from business to business that is highly inaccurate and can oftentimes cause a lot of problems.
And the ignorance is bliss doesn't really apply to the IRS, does it?
Well, even then, there's no such thing as ignorance under the law, because the law doesn't recognize that as a valid defense.
So I know there's a lot of tax attorneys out there that, are able to work with people that have got in trouble and, settle with the IRS for pennies on the dollar. Is that a comfort that maybe stops people from doing the right thing in the first place?
Well, I would suggest that might be a misnomer as well. One of the things that you see, particularly here in California, is there's a number of ads that come on TV. You see them early in the morning when you're getting ready to go out the door about firms that are coming in and they can go back and settle your liabilities for pennies on the dollar. And I can tell you that in most instances that is not true. The fact of the matter is those companies are coming from outside of the state of California. They're generally located in Florida or one of the islands surrounding Florida, and they come in and you send them your $5,000 and nothing happens. So the idea that somehow you're going to get someone to suddenly negotiate with the IRS for pennies on the dollars, I can tell you after doing this for 25 years, it's not that easy.
Well, that's the definite misconception that people need to be aware of, that the IRS are going to come after everything that they are due. And you definitely need somebody to help you out if that's the case. Yes.
And oftentimes when companies or individuals get into trouble, that is definitely the case. The liabilities that the IRS or any taxing authority for that matter can come back and assess are often overwhelming to most individuals and businesses.
So tell me about some of the fears that your clients have when they come to you and they've got themselves in trouble. What's going on in their head? What kind of problems are immediate to them? And how are you able to sort through that and find a plan to help them out?
Well, I think the primary fear is fear. People don't like to deal with, for example, the Internal Revenue Service. It's an authority that carries, I think, a lot of weight that people are frightened of. They're afraid of having done something wrong. They're afraid that the authorities will come in and take virtually everything it is that they own. And so there's sort of an inertia that is built in. I'll have clients walk in on an intake and they will have notices from a taxing authority for 3 years, unopened. So they really don't know what's going on. It's sort of, if I put my head in the sand, then I don't have to deal with it until suddenly somebody's, bashing down my door.
So tell me, what do you do with these clients when they come in and see you? Do you sit down and have a consultation with them?
Yes. I have an initial consultation with all of my clients. It's generally anywhere from half an hour to an hour. I don't charge people for those consultations because I don't know until I sat down and just discuss some of the issues that they're facing, whether or not I have the ability or capability of handling their particular issue. So it's during those consultations that I advise clients, whatever it is that you're doing, in your life, whether you're a doctor or a nurse or a restaurateur, that your highest and best use is going out and doing those things. And when you have an issue, whether it's tax or there's an accounting issue or there's some sort of legal issue, you need to find someone that you trust, that you can go back and put your confidence in and say, here's the issue and the problem. I need you to deal with it, and then go on with your life. Because people become overwhelmed. They don't understand law. They may not understand tax. Most oftentimes, businesses can't even read their own financial statements. So it's what they don't know that they're afraid of. And my job is to go back and to assure them that the issues that they bring to the table can and will be handled, and that they need to let go of the fear and the guilt and move on.
Definitely. Business owners have a lot on their plate, and they don't need to pretend that they have the kind of education that you do to sort these problems. So hiring a professional is definitely advisable there. Now, we talked about the accounting part being like the foundation of many of the problems, but what other common mistakes do business owners make?
Well, I think a lot of common mistakes are just being ignorant of the law. When you go back and you're dealing, for example, in the compliance area, and that would be sales tax, income tax, excise tax, if you're subjected to it, it's really not understanding the rules. Oftentimes people will get pieces of information, they'll set something up based on hearsay, somebody has said something, or that's how they presume that it is. You're not really understanding what the rules are in order to use the rules and comply with the rules in order to avoid some of the issues down the line that failure to go back and follow the regulations are going to create in their life.
So, Jan, can you share an example of how you've helped one of your clients overcome some of these problems and how you were able to help them succeed in getting back to the place that they were meant to be?
Well, I think for us, the thing that we do and the number of clients that we've been able to help starts by understanding what the client is doing and what it is that they need, and then being able to go back and solve a solution or create a solution. So, excuse me, I don't know why audit is on the mind, but it seems to me that the government agencies, particularly the EDD and sales tax group, which used to be the Board of Equalization, but they've just changed their name to a longer moniker. But it's those types of issues where you walk in and a client will have gone through an audit, and oftentimes I have a white paper that I've done on audits, and one of the things in the white paper is that you're allowed to say no. Simply because an auditor has asked you for something doesn't mean that you're required to go back and give it to them. So when we step in, and it's oftentimes after the client has gone back and submitted information to an auditor, the auditor has come back with a notice of determination. The determination will be in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, and the clients are beside themselves. And we step in, generally mid-audit, and we'll go back and we start taking a look at the fundamentals. And for me, I've always gone back to the underlying accounting. What are the numbers that are driving this audit? What is the outcome? What is the auditor's perception? What were they given? Was it accurate to begin with? And put together holistically, forensically, a realistic statistical pattern for the auditor to go back and crunch his numbers that actually make sense from the business side of our client. So on a number of occasions in the last, I'd say 6 to 9 months, we've been able to go in when clients have had notices of determination in excess of $300,000-$400,000 and drop those down substantially simply by going back and reviewing the auditor's worksheets, the underlying theory, and the mathematics that come about by crunching these numbers, that sometimes there's errors that can go back and create huge tax liabilities that are then penalized with penalties and interest.
That is definitely something that every business owner needs to hear that has been audited. Is, I think the fear again drives them to make decisions and to hand over whatever they are handing over, which might not be the accurate thing that they're looking for. And it's, great information to know that you can say no, but ultimately you need to get that professional help. Now, Jan, you have been at this for quite some time. Can you share with us a lesson that you learned early on in your business that still impacts how you do business today?
Oh, sure, that's easy. I learned early on never to take no as an answer. And I apply that in my daily life, but I also apply it in my clients' life as well. Oftentimes I'll go back, and particularly if I'm dealing with a controversy, some auditor will try and tell me no. And my goal is to go back, if I feel that I have a really strong argument that no is not an answer, and you have to persist until you can get the other side to go back and at least understand what it is that you're saying. And I found that over the years, by applying that sort of philosophy, I developed some fairly, not close, but good relationships. An auditor will know what it is that I mean, what I say when I say it, and that they can trust what it is that I'm giving them, because they know what it is that I've done, and the background and the preparation work that it's taken to get me to the point where I go back and ask them to re-review what it is they've done.
So that reputation certainly counts as well.
Yeah, I think it does, but I also think persistence pays off, and I don't like the word no.
Well, that's good to know. So what's the most important thing you think business owners should consider when evaluating a tax attorney like yourself?
Well, I think the most important thing to consider is the idea that issues have solutions that are tied into other parts of their business that they may not even think about. So, for example, I had a client that came in the other day. They were having some legal issues, so they were going to actually close down the business, and then they were going to transfer the assets to a new business. And my first question was, well, if you go back and you do that, there's a question of fiduciary duty from a legal perspective. You're transferring assets, that becomes a tax transactional perspective. And then from an accounting perspective, how are you going to actually accomplish that? So when people come in, they'll come in and they say, this is what I'm going to do. But in fact, you have to go back and you have to look at it from all perspectives, because the legal piece is one piece, but then there's the accounting piece and the tax piece. And just this one issue, I'm going to close this company down and transfer its assets, that need to be taken into consideration as well.
Well, there seems to be so many avenues that a business owner can go down that might be the wrong road. And it's definitely handy to have somebody like you on their side. So tell us, Jan, how can somebody find out more about you and both of your companies?
Well, we have a website. It's www.allenbarren.com, and that's ALLENBARRON. That takes you to both companies. There's a full information about accounting, law, tax, and litigation on the site, and the team members that we have here, and our address and emails.
Well, Jan, it has been a pleasure interviewing you today. We've got some great information from you. I'm sure the listeners are going to take that and be asking themselves some questions about their business and making sure at least that they have their accounting in order. So, Jan Allen, thank you very much for being my guest on Business Authority Radio today.
Thank you. I enjoyed talking with you.
And to our listening audience, if you like what you hear, hit that like button and share, and we'll see you next time on the show.
You've been listening to Business Authority Radio with Neil Howe and Greg Williams. To learn more about the resources mentioned in today's show, or to listen to past episodes, visit businessauthorityradio.com.